The appeal and influence that Malayalam cinema has achieved across the world in the last decade or so mostly builds on the realism that oozes out of the contemporary Malayali movies and yesteryear classics. We had spoken in detail on the same in our video on Malayalam cinema earlier. Now, this continued pursuit of dark reality might have eclipsed the fun and entertainment quotient of mainstream Malayalam cinema like it used to be back in the 80s or the 90s. While we laud this rise of Malayalam cinema to be at par with international standards, fans are heard saying how much they miss the comedies, the masalas, the melodramas. So when a mass movie like Bheeshma Parvam starring megastar Mammootty hits the theatres, the craze is expected to be mountain high as it reflects in the film's opening numbers. The action thriller has recorded the third highest opening day ever in the state for a Mollywood film and is expected to have a super successful run at the box office. But beyond these numbers, the fan outbursts, does the Amal Neerad film satisfy the hunger of a well-executed mass movie that Malayalam cinema is lacking for some time now? Or is it yet another lazy take on Mahabharata and The Godfather together? Let us take a deep dive into this analysis of Bheeshma Parvam. Well, to keep it short and simple, Bheeshma Parvam was a mixed bag of reaction for us. It has plenty to invest on or take away, and yet it does not satisfy enough. Well, the premise itself that works as an eruption of Mahabharata family feud, with references to the Corleone family from the Godfather series, lacks novelty. We have watched too many of them to be excited about another one. A subversion of the epic like we had in Karnan last year would have been interesting, but Bheeshma Parvam doesn't go anywhere such attempts. Instead, we have a kind of match the following game in front of us, trying to figure out who is the Yudhishthir of the story and which one is Duryodhan. The amazing ensemble cast, however, elevates this flat setup. A chance to watch Needu Mudi Venu and KPAC Lalitha together on big screen once more was a sheer delight. Dilish Pothan as the scheming uncle, Shine Tom Chako as the eccentric nephew, or Srinath Bhasi as the spirited romantic add up to the texture of the story. But what the characters lack is having their own arcs that influence the plot lines. The narrative structure of Bheeshma Parvam, the linear progression of the story that one can predict from the start, would have been exactly the same even if any of these individually interesting side characters would have been missing. Apart from maybe Soubin Shahir's Ajas, whose Yudhishthir-like crisis is the pulse of the second half. He having done everything right and just when eventually lands up to a violent fate, the Mahabharata subtext works at its best. The arrows that had formed the bed of Bhishma and Kurukshetra war find reference in the title font cum animation of the film. We also hear one of the antagonists say how religion, politics and family can run together to be the fatal blow for Michael, as in multiple arrows from all directions for our Bhishma of the story. The subtext of Bheeshma Parvam gets interesting here, being in line with other contemporary South Indian movies that reflect on the ongoing Hindi oppression of the country. Sudev Nair, the central villain of the story, comes from Bombay. Mammootty shoos him off, taunting in Hindi, in one of the pure mass moments of the film. Ginu Joseph plays a Catholic priest, one of the members of Michael's family, and a conspirator against him. In previous Indian adaptations of The Godfather, including Amitabh Bachchan Sarkar, we have watched how a Hindu sadhu plays one of the schemers, and this subversion of Ginu as Father Simon works well for the cultural connotations of the setup. However, these well-thought ideas do not participate in the endgame. They add but do not merge into Bhishma's universe. Same goes for the behind-the-camera craftsmanship. The amazing production design that sets up a vintage flavor for the film, bringing back the pre-millennium nostalgia, starting from the opening credits itself, is to be lauded in isolation. But does the premise of the bygone era add to the narrative? We are not too sure. Sushin Shyam's music is superb. The background music particularly works so well during Mammootty's slow-mo entries and action movements. The action set pieces itself, beautifully choreographed in signature Amal Neerad unhurried style, work as a fine tribute to the swag of Mammootty, the star. But this swag is more reminiscent of Bilal from Amal and Mammootty's Big B, which don't accommodate the dilemma of Bhishma or the crisis of the Corleones. Now hold on, in expecting all these, are we going back to the idea of realism again and deviating from the entertainment that the film is primarily aiming at? Maybe not, and let us try to explain why. Bheeshma Parvam suffers from the strong antagonist crisis that's now regular for mass movies. We really miss the good old days of menacing villains who would be more interesting than even the hero, thus making us anxious for the hero's survival and rooting for him all the more. The action set pieces, though technically amazing, are all owned by Mammootty the star, and so is his face-offs with Sudev Nair. Shine Chako, who only a few months back was a devil incarnation in Kurup, is fun to watch in Bheeshma Parvam, but doesn't sum up the courage to even raise his voice against Mammootty's Michael, and those scenes then turn into comic episodes. And all this happens because in this movie, like most of the mass movies these days, it's not our favorite actors playing human heroes anymore, but brands that can be questioned, tarnished, or even touched. So whether Dulquer playing the evil in Kurup, or Mammootty playing the Bheeshma incarnation in Bheeshma Parvam, or Mohanlal playing the savior in Lucifer, the brand value and the image of the star has always been a priority over audience engagement and entertainment. Thus taking away the mass hero for whom the audience can root for and make him a superhero whom you can only worship. One need not be worried about him or whether he can save the day, as from the first scene to the last, he's always in control. Mammootty, above all superstars of our country, is perhaps the most flexible one in terms of choice of characters, having played the servile and the oppressor with equal ease. We really wish Bheeshma Parvam could make use of the actor and not only the star, as his character built upon the image of Bheeshma promised on the surface. Now let's go back to the box office details, the place where we started. The third highest opening day ever in the state for a Mollywood movie. And what are the other 4 Mollywood films in the top 5 highest opening day grosser? Orion, Marakkar, Lucifer and Kayamkulam Kochuni. All 4 Mohanlal starters, the other legend of Malayalam cinema. While we understand the provocative pressure that runs in the industry to milk the image of Lalitana and Mamukka for churning gold at the box office, let's hope the imaginative artistry, painful reflections and useful frustrations that their characters thrived on earlier are also revived. The character has to belong from the mass to make it a pure mass movie, and not a above all, holier-than-thou messiah. That is all from us today. Hope you liked this video. Please share the video and leave a like and a comment. Thank you for watching.